We got Batman as a rancher. We got Javert as an outlaw. And we got Percy Jackson just trying to come into his own. And don't forget Ben Foster being insane. I just rewatched 3:10 to Yuma and I want to talk about it. So let's get into what makes 3:10 to Yuma one of my favorite Westerns. We're going to break it down piece by piece by going through the P's. First up is the premise. So let's see if I can sum that up pretty quickly. I'm not sure if I can. But Dan is Christian Bale's character. He's a rancher, hard on his luck. He owes money to the bank. They want their money. Then he has a run-in with Russell Crowe's character, who is an outlaw in a gang of outlaws. He's the head dude. They have a run-in in town. Russell Crowe's character is arrested, and they put together this band of people, some from the railroad, some from law enforcement, and ends up being Dan, so he can get some money to save his ranch, to take Russell Crowe's character to the 3:10 to Yuma, which is the train that takes prisoners to Yuma prison. And then the whole time, this group that's taking Russell Crowe to the train is trying to fend off Russell Crowe's group of outlaws who want to break him free. Next, let's talk about the players. So Russell Crowe is going to be one of the leads here, and he is one of the best outlaws in the history of film, I think. He plays his outlaw, Ben Wade, super cool, super charismatic. You almost kind of relate to him and don't think he's that bad of a guy, which works throughout the film in many aspects. He's one of the best outlaws in film, and then I'll say that Ben Foster is also in this film, and he is just devious. There's some shots of Ben Foster in here that will give you chills, and he plays really well in that as well. Then we have Christian Bale, who's Dan Evans, the rancher down on his luck. He's actually a Civil War veteran. He lost his leg, and things aren't panning out for him. His wife isn't being taken care of as well as he thinks, someone should take care of her, even though he's trying his hardest. His kids maybe don't necessarily respect him or understand where he's coming from. And he has this opportunity to make some money, to make a name for himself. He takes it, and that's really what drives the movie. The last performance I want to touch on is Logan Lerman, who plays Dan Evans' son in this. And he's kind of at that age where he's, not quite a boy, not quite a man. He's wanting to do more, have more responsibility. He wants to go on the journey to take Ben Wade to jail. And how that kind of comes back into the film and kind of disrupts the plot is really interesting. All right, next let's talk about the palette. We're going to be talking about direction and cinematography here. This is kind of a duo. These two work together a lot on a lot of films. James Mangold and Faden Papamichael, I think is how his name is pronounced. But they both did A Complete Unknown recently with Timothée Chalamet. The Johnny Cash Walk the Line movie, which is kind of similar to A Complete Unknown film, in my opinion. But that's who we've got. We've got vast Western scapes. We've got the Evans household. It's cramped. These are some styles to kind of show, kind of how boxed in he is in his life. He's feeling pressure from all sides. But then you get the great vistas that you would expect from, a Western. A stagecoach robbery, and really one of the great scenes is the final. I'd say the final 15 minutes of this movie really keeps you wrapped. So they are leaning a lot on what's been done in great Westerns. It's nothing revolutionary, but it's just stuff you love to see. The dusty, dingy towns. I mean, it's all done well, and that's what matters. So after considering direction and cinematography, that brings us to the postcard, which I'm going to basically use as the still or the image that kind of encapsulates the film, or maybe it's the best frame in the film, I think. And I'm going to go with this one here, Ben Foster in front of the flames, after they think they caught up to Ben Wade and are going to be able to get him out of this coach. It's actually an old switcheroo trick that the posse played, and one of the members of the posse is in that stagecoach now. They burn it down, and just the look on Ben Foster's face, the fire, the violence, and the outfit. This dude is dripped out. So I think this is going to be my postcard for 3:10 to Yuma. Next, let's talk about the philosophy, which I'm going to kind of use as the term for the main theme or themes. I think a huge one in 3:10 to Yuma is the father-son dynamic. I first watched this as a son when I was only a son, as a teenager. And I liked the movie, and I liked it maybe more for its action. But I think as I've grown up and I have a son now, I like that dynamic in this movie a lot. Dan Evans is really just trying to do the best for his family. I don't like to say win their respect, but he wants to, show them that he's still worthy, that he's still got it. There's something that everyone, I think, goes through as they age and they want to, stay relevant in their work or do anything like that. But the father-son element really amps that up in 3:10 to Yuma. I think another theme you really have to consider when you watch this movie is honor versus lawlessness, or good versus evil. It can boil down to that. You have Dan Evans, the family man, trying to provide, trying to do the right thing at all times, but he gets in some gray areas. And then you have Ben Wade, the outlaw, who you expect to be fully evil, always plotting against Dan and his group. But he is also in some gray areas where he sees and respects what Dan does and who Dan is, the type of man he is. Maybe he's not seen that type of example or someone exemplify it as real and as earnestly as Dan has. So he makes some decisions that might surprise people in the movie. And I think that's what is beautiful about life. There are blurred lines. There are situations that can make you change, reflect on your character. And I think that's a huge part of why I really like 3:10 to Yuma as far as its philosophy. All right, next segment we're going to talk about is the parallels, which is my fun P word for essentially the symbolism or things that might be reflected in real life. I think a big one here is the train, the idea of getting to the train. It is a fixed moment in time. It is the destiny. It is taking you to your journey. And these folks have to meet that time, 3:10 to Yuma, or it is over. It's a constraint, but it's also a destination. It's progress. It's moving in the direction of where we need to go in the movie. And I think that's a huge one in 3:10 to Yuma. Another huge piece of symbolism in this movie is Dan Evans' disability. He fought in the war. He paid a price for that. He's now living it out, but it's a perceived weakness. You could see Ben Wade look at it at times, kind of size Dan up. Is this man somebody I can, overpower because of this perceived weakness of this disability? It also pushes Dan to have to work harder, to be smarter, and come through situations a little differently. So I think that's a huge symbolism, just the idea of that disability as weakness and how it's overcome. All right, now let's talk about the pivotal moment, which typically will be the climax or what I think is the best scene in the movie. This happens to be both for 3:10 to Yuma. We're holed up at the hotel in Yuma. We have Ben Wade, the outlaw, Dan Evans, the good rancher, and his son, which his name is escaping me. I have to look it up after this review. But everybody that was with them or tried to join them at some point, in the group to get Ben Wade to the 3:10 to Yuma has been killed or has just abandoned them. And it's 2:58. We got to get to the train, So we leave the hotel. Dan and Ben are going through the streets, running towards the train depot. The gang is dispersed in the town. They have enlisted townspeople to try to kill Dan Evans just for getting him, getting Ben Wade to the train. So we have all this commotion going on. There's parts of this town that are being built up. So buildings are just kind of stick framed and running through and bullets are whizzing by. It's exciting, but Dan's leg is bad. And Ben Wade ends up helping Dan a couple times, which kind of is his redemption moment. He respects Dan so much that he's helping him get him onto this prison train. They get there. The son was told to go home, but he loops back around. And I'm sorry, this is, spoilers are coming up. I'm assuming you've seen this, but herd of cattle that run and block the gang from reaching Dan and Ben so Ben can get on the train. And then at the end, as the train leaves, the gang catches up with Dan and kills him. Son sees everything. Thankfully, the banker has promised that the money will get to the family, so he's set. But, Dan Evans lived to be the hero. His son got to see him be a hero, to take Ben Wade to this train, to fulfill the promise, to do the hard thing. And it's hard to know if that was worth it because he lost his father. They got some money. They saved the ranch, but you lost your father. The heartbreaking thing is, as the train is running off, Ben Wade whistles, horse runs by the train, and you just know Ben Wade is going to get out. It wouldn't have mattered. He would have gotten out. Dan would have gotten the money because the banker saw Ben Wade get on the train. He would have escaped and everything would have been fine. But wow, what a pivotal moment. Sorry, I went on and on about it, but that is definitely what makes this movie. And you're just, the last 20 minutes, you're just locked in, no doubt. All right, next we're going to talk about the problem or problems, if I end up having any with a movie. I don't really have a ton with 3:10 to Yuma. I think it might be a little overlong at some points. It's definitely a slow burn. That last fourth of the movie is action-packed. You are glued to your seat. You're, wanting to know what happens. Even if you've seen it, you are still very invested in the story. But to get up to that, you have to be in the right mood to kind of let it all play out. I think another kind of just a funny problem I have is Luke Wilson being in it the way he is. It's just like, oh, you're definitely still Luke Wilson, just kind of with bad teeth. All right, next is my perspective. So my score, I'm going to do it on spools based out of my logo. So I give 310 to Yuma a solid 4 spools. This is a movie most of the time I will gladly sit down and watch. And if you're a fan of movies, I will recommend this, that you at least see it once. I think Ben Foster is electric in it. I think the cast is solid throughout. We have a great top tier outlaw who you connect with. And I think that's one of the most beautiful things about it. You can see yourself in him, and you can see yourself in Dan Evans. There's the ties between father and son, the honorable versus, kind of the lawless. There's a lot of things that you can kind of be introspective about and think about. So I'm giving 310 to Yuma, 4 spools, baby. All right, one of the last things I want to hit is Now Playing, which is where you can actually go and watch this movie. I have it, so I watched one of my copies, but it looks like as of the date of this posting, it is streaming on Peacock. So if you haven't seen it, definitely go check out 310 to Yuma. And finally, guys, don't forget the Patreon. I've got one low price where I'm offering everything, early access, a community to talk about movies, help me decide what movies to watch next. One low price. I'm doing shout outs on the video as I gain patrons. So that's exciting. Or just subscribe if you want to come and hang out again and discuss some of the movies I'm watching. Thanks.